Israel Public Affairs Committee's annual policy conference. Here's from House Majority Leader John Boehner and former Senator and Vice Presidential candidate John Edwards. This is 40 Minutes.
I'm an AIPAC board member from Connecticut. If you were to ask John Boehner's colleagues to describe him in one word, that word would be determined. In 16 years in Congress, he has demonstrated this determination through some of the toughest legislative and political battles, gaining the respect of members of both parties in the process. This determination has characterized his work in issues important to the U.S. pro-Israel community. He has consistently supported foreign aid to Israel, as well as legislation that aims to block Iran's pursuit of nuclear weapons. In his years as a lawmaker, his door has always been open to us, and his commitment has always been clear. As House Republican Conference Chair in 1998, he led a bipartisan delegation to Israel, recruiting other members to go with him to see firsthand the dangers Israel faces from terrorist groups such as the one that now controls the Palestinian Authority. While in Israel, they toured Jerusalem, the Golan Heights, met with the Israeli Prime Minister and top security officials. He understands what Israel is up against and how important it is for America to have an ally like Israel in the world's most unstable region. We are proud to have him as our ally and our friend. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the new and very determined Majority Leader of the House of Representatives, John Boehner.
This is a crowd. Let me just say thank you for your warm welcome this morning. I am the new Majority Leader, and it's really quite an honor to be chosen by your colleagues. Quite an honor to be chosen by your colleagues to be their leader. And over the course of a campaign that lasted 26 days, locked in a small room with a phone attached to my ear, you learn a lot about your colleagues and what they're interested in. But you should all know that this is something I never in my wildest dreams ever thought I would do. I have 11 brothers and sisters. I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio. My dad owned a bar. And I got involved in the private sector and was running a business, and along the way got involved in my neighborhood homeowners association and ended up in the United States Congress. This too could happen to you. But over the 25 years I've been in elective office, it's been a wonderful, wonderful experience to offer public service to my neighbors and friends. Earlier this morning, I take my usual walk, and it might be good for my legs, but it's really good for my head. And this morning, I was thinking about the people in the Jewish community in my district who have worked with me on issues that are of importance to all of you over the last 22, 23 years. I was thinking about Manny Garlikoff and his wife Roz, who are now in a nursing home in Middletown, Ohio, who during my years in the state legislature helped me to begin to understand the importance of these issues. And when I got to the legislature, I met a guy from Cincinnati named Dick Weiland. And for most of you from around Cincinnati and elsewhere, Dick was very active in the Jewish community and never failed in his opportunity to press your case. And over the last several years, Steve Miller from Cincinnati has kind of taken up the mantle to be the guy to work with me and help me to understand how important the fate of Israel is, not only to Jews around the world, but to us here in the United States. And then Howard Corr, thank you. Howard Corr, who's worked for AIPAC for, well, at least the last 10 or 12 years, someone who I've worked with day in and day out over the last, at least, again, 10 or 12 years, someone who I think does a great job on your behalf in terms of his vigilance each and every day on your behalf. Israel and the United States have a unique friendship based on our mutual commitment to democracy, freedom, and peace. And as the new House Majority Leader, I can assure you that under my leadership, legislation that is in any way perceived as anti-Israel will not be considered in the House of Representatives. Thank you very much. I think it's important for all of you to understand what this commitment means. As Israel's friend, the United States recognizes the delicate nature of Israel's security situation and its state of political affairs. It is with this firm recognition that we offer a durable and unyielding alliance between our two great nations. The rise of radical Islamic fundamentalism in the Middle East has dramatically increased the threat to Israel's national security and their very existence. Israel faces an arc of regional threats, including Iran's irresponsible refusal to fully cooperate with the international community's concern with regard to its nuclear weapons program and its unwillingness to end its state-sponsored terrorism around the world. The election of Hamas in the Palestinian parliamentary elections, and the resurgence of Hezbollah operating in Syria and Lebanon, and the recent parliamentary wins by the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. And I think we need to take all of these threats seriously. As the United States learned on September 11th, 2001, a radical Islamic fundamentalist mean what they say. They have no respect for the lives of people who do not agree with them. The United States will welcome democratic change and process, but we will not be distracted from seeing events on the ground as they really are. The United States will work with Israel and the international community to find a solution to the current showdown with Iran. Our quarrel is not with the people of Iran, it is with the government of Iran. The United States will work with our partners to mobilize and support pro-democracy groups in Iran. We should pressure critical points in Iran's fragile economy to isolate the government and provide momentum for a regime change. We will not, however, allow political maneuvering to distract or delay our response to Iran's breach of its international legal commitments regarding its nuclear weapons program. The recent Palestinian parliamentary elections are also an issue that the international community needs to address. The United States will respect fair, open, and independent democratic elections around the world. However, we will not be blind to the actions and decisions of governments which do not respect their international commitments and their domestic obligations. And until Hamas changes course, dismantles its terrorist organization, and agrees to work toward a peaceful settlement with Israel, no taxpayer funds should be provided to support this Palestinian government. We should continue working with Israel and the international community to identify ways to provide financial support and technical assistance to pro-democracy groups. There are some tough issues that I think we must tackle, and I'm happy to work with all of you to try to find those solutions. In 1998, I took a group of members on a trip to Israel, which had a huge impact on me personally and on my awareness of the threat that Israel faces. Whether we're standing at the Wailing Wall, going to the Temple on the Mount, or standing on the Golan Heights and beginning to realize just how small and how close many of these enemies are, it was seen firsthand for me, the real vulnerability that Israel faces. In recent years, it's been fashionable in certain circles to downplay the threats that Israel faces, characterizing terrorists, including Hamas, as freedom fighters, as an example, or ignoring hateful rhetoric and the fact that radical Islamic terrorists actually act on their rhetoric, or the rise of anti-Semitic rhetoric in general. We need your continued passion and dedication to fight these alarming trends and raise awareness that Israel's struggle is our struggle. We are fighting the same hate and the same violence all around the world. I'm committed to working with you to bring stability, peace, and prosperity to Israel and the Middle East. You have an important role to play, and I'm here to ask you to continue to play that role and to educate the members of Congress that you work with. Continuing on my walk this morning, I began to think about the key issue in the struggle for Israel over these last almost 60 years. And it really boils down to just one word, and that word is vigilance. Vigilance isn't a sometime activity that we must take part in. Vigilance, I've begun to realize, is something that we have to do on a daily basis. And when you begin to think about what Israel faces, especially in the current political and geopolitical dynamics that they find themselves in, it's vigilance on a daily basis that's necessary. And I'm here to suggest to you that if we do, in fact, provide that vigilance, all of you in this room, and myself included, vigilance on a daily basis is the key to a secure and peaceful and prosperous Israel. Thank you for being here, and keep up the fight.
Hello, my name is Randall Kaplan. I'm an AIPAC board member from Greensboro, North Carolina. The word that comes to mind when one thinks of John Edwards is a simple one: advocate. Whether it is in the courtroom, on the Senate floor, on the campaign trail, or in his new passion as director of the Poverty Center at the University of North Carolina, John is simply one of the best. And when it comes to fighting terrorism, ensuring security of Israel, and working towards peace in the Middle East, we are thankful to have John Edwards, our advocate, in our corner. In the Senate, he had a strong pro-Israel voting record, and as a member of the Senate Intelligence Committee, one of his first trips was to Israel. Let me read a quote from John Edwards about the impact of this trip. I was in Israel a couple of years ago. We left in the morning, headed to the airport to leave, and later in the day I found out that same day, not far from where we were staying, the Sbarro Pizzeria was hit by a suicide bomber in Jerusalem. 15 people were killed. 6 children were killed. What are the Israeli people supposed to do? How can they continue to watch Israeli children killed by suicide bombers, killed by terrorists? They have not only the right, but the obligation to defend themselves. This is a man who has seen firsthand what Israelis face and has asserted that Israel's self-defense is simply not its right, but its obligation. This is a man who has a real understanding of the principles and values that bind Jerusalem and Washington. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to introduce to you former Senator, former Vice Presidential candidate, and I suspect perhaps future presidential candidate, John Edwards.
Good morning. What a pleasure to be here with all of you. Let me first say thank you to Randall and to Randall's wonderful wife, Kathy, who've been long and dear friends and supporters of mine. And let me also say a word about my wife, Elizabeth, because when I'm traveling around the country now, people often ask how she's doing. A lot of you know, I'm sure, that the day after the election, November 2nd, my wife, Elizabeth, was diagnosed with breast cancer. The good news is Elizabeth's doing great. She's doing very, very well. She finished her treatment last summer. We actually had a bunch of tests done just before Christmas, this past Christmas, and I'm always knock on wood when I say this, she's cancer-free, so we're all very pleased about that. I want to tell you a quick story from the campaign. I have lots of stories from the presidential campaign, but only one I'm going to tell this morning. And actually, I know that Vice President Cheney will be here to speak with you tomorrow. This is a story that I know he's heard and he enjoys too. So it happened the night of the vice presidential debate, which I'm sure a lot of you saw on television. It took place in Cleveland, Ohio. About 44 million people watched the debate on television. And when the debate was over, they did what they always do at these debates. The cameras are still rolling. They brought the families up on stage. So my wife, Elizabeth, came up first. Then my daughter, my older daughter, Kate, who some of you will remember, came up. She lives in New York now, works for Vanity Fair magazine. And then my two younger kids, who some of you will remember, Emma Claire, who was 6 at the time, and then Jack, who was 4, came up on the stage. Jack came running over to me. He jumped up in my arms. He said, "Dad." I said, "Not now, son. We're still waving to the camera." A couple more minutes passed, and he said, "Dad," and I said, "Not yet, we're still waving." Finally, he said, "Dad," and I said, "What?" And he said, "Which one's Cheney?" It's a great privilege for me to be here with all of you today. And I want to say first, I appreciate all the work that you do to give strength to the extraordinarily important and vital partnership between the United States and Israel, which is something I believe in very deeply and have for a long time. For more than half a century, the alliance between our countries has been one of the most enduring and most important, standing for our shared values of liberty, opportunity, and hope. And I especially want to thank AIPAC for all that you do to support this partnership and for helping all of us to think through the very tough issues which are going on right now in this great policy conference. Your work is critically important today when America and Israel face so many challenges, which I know you'll be discussing during the course of this conference. I want to begin this morning by saying just a few words about a man who did so much to help Israel face its challenges, Ariel Sharon. Prime Minister Sharon is one of the giants of Israel's history and one of America's great friends. And I myself, I appreciate today the time that I was able to spend with him when I was in Israel. Throughout his career in public service, and especially during the past few years with his historic decision to evacuate Gaza, Prime Minister Sharon acted in the only way he knew how to act. He made brave, bold decisions to ensure a strong and secure Israel. His legacy, commitment to service, strong leadership, unstinting patriotism, and a deep belief in the vital partnership between Israel and the United States is something that all of us should admire, must always remember, and never stop working to uphold. During this difficult time, all Israelis should know that America stands with them, remaining committed to their security and their efforts to build a better and more peaceful future. And, as we all wish the Prime Minister our love and affection for he and for his family, our thoughts and prayers are with him every day. More than anyone else, Prime Minister Sharon understood that a strong Israel is a safe Israel. And we need to remember, all of us need to remember the example that he set, especially as we consider the extraordinary security threats that Israel faces today. Let's start with Iran's nuclear ambitions, which I believe is the single greatest security threat not only to Israel, but to the United States. In fact, today is a pivotal day, with the IAEA meeting to send the matter to the UN Security Council to take action. It's about time, is what I have to say about that. For years, I have argued that the United States has not been doing enough to deal with the growing threat in Iran. While we've talked about the dangers of nuclear terrorism, we've largely stood on the sidelines as the problems got worse. I believe that for far too long, we've abdicated our responsibility to deal with the Iranian threat to the Europeans. That is not the way to deal with an unacceptable threat to America and an unacceptable threat to Israel. Iran's recent actions, beginning with the reprocessing of uranium, refusing to cooperate with international inspections, makes clear that it intends to build nuclear weapons. And the Iranian president's statements, such as his despicable description of the Holocaust as a myth, or his ugly pledge to wipe Israel off the map. You know, when he says these kind of things, I take him at his word. And we need to treat it as a very serious statement. And we all know that if Iran goes nuclear, it increases the likelihood that Saudi Arabia would be next, making Israel's neighborhood even more dangerous. It's good that we're finally at the point where the international community is ready to confront Iran with a clear choice: give up your nuclear ambitions or suffer the consequences. But I believe that with more engaged and more active American leadership, we could have been, in fact, we should have been, at this point months ago. And active American leadership will be needed in the days ahead to ensure that our European allies, as well as countries like China and Russia, stand with us together to confront Iran in the Security Council with meaningful sanctions. The truth is that for too long we've muddled through on this threat. Now we need to make a clear stand that Iran cannot and will not have nuclear weapons. Keeping nuclear weapons out of Tehran's hands is a strategic imperative for the security of the United States, for Israel, and for the world. And we need to do what we can to help encourage democratic change in Iran. Iran is the greatest external threat facing Israel, but just as alarming is the threat on its doorstep, a Palestinian leadership led by Hamas. Hamas makes no effort to disguise its top priority: to destroy Israel. Its charter promises to raise the banner of Allah over every inch of Palestine and spouts the darkest of anti-Semitic claims. I'll never forget, and I heard Randall make reference to this just a minute ago, I'll never forget on August 9th, 2001, as I was just ending a trip to Jerusalem, when a Hamas suicide bomber wearing an explosive belt of nails, screws, nuts, bolts blew up the Sbarro Pizzeria, not far from where we were staying at the King David Hotel. 15 innocent people died. 6 children died. This is now the face of the Palestinian leadership. With such a threat, Israel not only has the right, Israel has the obligation to defend itself. And we have to be there with them as they do it. This means continuing to deepen our economic ties and to strengthen our military cooperation so that Israel maintains its qualitative edge. It means continuing our strong diplomatic relationship and standing up to those who would try to use international organizations to isolate or unfairly punish Israel. It also means thinking creatively about ways to connect Israel to some of our most important and successful security institutions. For example, I believe that we should be exploring ways to upgrade Israel's relationship with NATO. This could mean a stronger strategic, a closer strategic and operational relationship. It could mean more exchanges and planning cooperation. It could even someday mean membership. NATO is the greatest democratic security alliance in the world today. It now has a mission that goes far beyond Europe, as we've seen in Afghanistan. So it's only natural that we should work to deepen its cooperation with Israel. And I believe the United States should lead this effort to strengthen NATO's relationship with Israel. We also have to send a clear, crystal clear, and unmistakable message to the Hamas-led Palestinian leadership. You will not get one dime of American taxpayer dollars as long as you refuse to recognize Israel's right to exist as a Jewish state, abide by past agreements, and end your support for terrorism. Now that Hamas has to deal with the responsibility of governance, we cannot let it off the hook. It can't get anything for free. And while the international community should continue to help the Palestinian people's humanitarian needs, like food and medicine, outside assistance for Palestinian development or governance is not an entitlement. And we need to work with our European allies and others, like Russia, to ensure that any money that goes to help the Palestinian people does not end up lining terrorist pockets. International unity on this issue is absolutely essential. In fact, after I leave here this morning, I'll be going with former Secretary Jack Kemp to announce the findings of a U.S. Russia task force for the Council on Foreign Relations. Jack Kemp and I have been chairing this task force over the course of the last year. U.S. Russia cooperation can in fact help the United States deal with some of the most difficult problems we face. Yet regrettably, that cooperation has become the exception, not the norm. Our report, in fact, is a wake-up call to get the U.S.-Russia relationship back on track to meet the challenges that face us and face the world. In fact, Russia's behavior toward Hamas is a very important test for Russia. What Russia does next will have serious ramifications for our relationship with Russia. And I want to end this morning saying just a few words about what I think is the great issue facing America here at home and the great issue facing America around the world. I believe that there is a huge void in moral leadership in America today. And you watch what's happening, most of you saw this on your television screens, as a result of the hurricane hitting the Gulf Coast. And for many Americans, they saw the face of poverty, as we saw in the lower Ninth Ward, for example, in New Orleans, a face that they either hadn't seen or didn't want to think about. You know, I have a very simple view about this. In a country of our wealth and our prosperity, to have 37 million people who wake up in poverty every day is wrong. And we, all of us together, have a responsibility to do something about it. And it's also important for us to recognize that we are not the only ones that saw what happened in New Orleans. We're not the only ones who saw the face of poverty in America. The world saw the face of poverty in America. I saw a publication from overseas shortly after the flood hit New Orleans, and it had pictures of victims from the lower Ninth Ward. And the headline was, "The Shaming of America." The world is watching. They want to know whether the most prosperous, powerful nation on the face of the planet is actually going to turn its back on 37 million of its own people who wake up in poverty every day. There's so much opportunity, so much good to be done by helping people help themselves. And it's not just what we do here at home. It's not just addressing what I believe is the great moral issue here in America. It's also America providing moral leadership around the world. You know, I was in Britain not long ago, and I spent an hour and a half with the Prime Minister, Tony Blair, and listened, just the two of us, listening to him talk about Britain's attempt to lead on the big issues, the moral issues that face the world. You know, poverty in America is moderate compared to poverty around the world. Half of the planet lives on $2 or less a day. Almost 3 billion people. Where is America? Where is American leadership? While we have this extraordinary policy conference today, there's a genocide going on in Sudan, in Darfur. Black people are being killed, driven from their homes. Black women are being raped. We said, after Rwanda, America said, this will never happen again. You'll remember the phrase, not on our watch. It's happening right now. And where is America? Where is American leadership? We have to fill this void in moral leadership in the world. Not only do we need to do it for ourselves, because it says something about the character of our country, we have to do it for the world, because when we don't lead, there is an enormous void. And I want to say, I know that we have a big crowd of young people here, which I'm very pleased about. I want to say something to the young people in this audience. Young people have changed America before, and you can change America again. I saw it when I was a teenager. I saw young people lead, not follow, lead the fight for civil rights in America. They weren't waiting for their parents to tell them what was right and what was wrong. They weren't waiting to be told what to do. They saw it, they saw an injustice, and they went out and fought with backbone and energy and passion for what was right. Young people, have changed America before. You can change it again. We saw it even more recently with efforts on college and university campuses to topple this brutal apartheid regime in South Africa. What I would say to the young people who are here, and I'll borrow a line from an extraordinary woman who passed away a few years ago, but who's an activist who organized people around important social causes. She would always end her speeches by saying, you know, the leaders we've been waiting for are us. She's exactly right. We can't wait. We have to lead. We have to keep America strong and secure. We have to help keep Israel strong and secure. And we have to show the world what the character and morality of the America we believe in is. God bless you all. Thank you. It's my honor and privilege to be with you.
Thank you, Senator Edwards. I'm Mike Levin. I'm an AIPAC board member from New Jersey. Before we continue with the program, there's some AIPAC business we have to take care of. By virtue of being a member of AIPAC and attending this conference, you are all members of the 2006 National Assembly. This honor is both important and short-lived. In a moment, I'm going to ask you to help in electing a portion of our National Executive Committee in addition to approving our 2006 action agenda. Once we have accomplished these tasks, your work as a National Assembly member will be done, and we can get on with our morning plenary. On your tables, you will find two items. First, there is a list of the 2006 Executive Committee nominees, a portion of which have been labeled as regional nominees. We will now ask you to approve those nominees. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Terrific. All against, say nay. Clearly, the ayes have it. AIPAC's 2006 Regional Executive Committee nominees are hereby approved. The second item you will find is a copy of AIPAC's 2006 action agenda, which was approved by AIPAC's Executive Committee yesterday morning, and for which we now ask once again your approval. All those in favor, please say aye. All those against, say nay. Once again, the ayes have it. AIPAC's 2006 action agenda is approved. Thank you again, ladies and gentlemen, for your participation and for fulfilling your duty as delegates to AIPAC's National Assembly. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Rosalind Swig, sissy to many of you, and I'm from San Francisco, and I'm a member of the AIPAC Board of Directors. It's now my pleasure to introduce the second in our series of addresses coming to us from Israel. Prime Ministerial candidate and chairman of the Labor Party, Amir Peretz. Peretz defied the polls and the pundits when he was chosen over Shimon Peres to lead the Labor Party into elections later this month, becoming the first Sephardic Jew in Israel's history to head a major political party. A longtime political activist, he has served as mayor of the southern town of Sderot and as head of Israel's main labor union, the Histadrut. While this is his first address to an AIPAC audience, he has met with AIPAC's leadership before and maintains a very strong working relationship with our Jerusalem office. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now honored to bring your remarks by Amir Peretz, the leader of the Labor Party and a candidate for Prime Minister of Israel.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me start by sending you my warmest regards from Israel. The issues you are discussing, the election of Hamas and Iran's nuclear threat, are critical to Israel, the U.S., and the entire world. These complicated times require decisive action. An Israeli government, under my leadership, will never agree to talk to anyone who does not disarm, end terror, and recognize Israel. No fund must reach the Hamas, not from Israel and not from the international community. My red line is the green flag of Hamas. But while cutting off the Hamas, we must strengthen moderate Palestinian forces. We must be very clear. Our fight is not with the Muslim or Arab world or with the Palestinian people. Our fight is only against terror. Iran is today a threat not only to Israel, but to the entire free world. The international community must unite to stop Iran's nuclear program. The Security Council must use all of its authority to stop these dangerous situations. Israel will leave every option open to protect ourselves. The threats from outside are very difficult, but if we want Israel to be strong, we have to find a way to strengthen Israel's society. Let me be clear. One of the greatest dangers is the growing economic gaps between the very rich and average working families. National security and personal prosperity cannot be separated. But that is what is happening. 1.5 million citizens live under the poverty line. Nearly 1 of every 5 Israeli families. Nearly 700,000 Israeli children live in poverty. That's 1 out of every 3 children in Israel. 22% of our senior citizens live in poverty. This is not the Israel that you and I dream of. So let us commit ourselves today to fight for Israel's security against the Hamas, Iran, and fundamentalist terror. I have a dream that one day a strong Israel will live in peace and social justice. That is the way to promise a better future for our children and for the next Jewish generation. Thank you.
We truly appreciate Mr. Peretz's willingness to take time out of his busy schedule to speak to us about these important issues. We would also like to send our thanks to all of the esteemed guests who made for such an impressive morning lineup. We really appreciate your time today and your dedication to the critical issues that are shaping the United States and Israel every day. So now, my friends, we have a wonderful series of programming awaiting you. And at this time, I ask that each of you please proceed to your regional meetings to prepare for tomorrow's critical lobbying sessions. And thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day.